I guess his high was anti-Semitism, and now he's crashing, he's coming down, and it's going to be very brutal because the higher you go up, the lower you go down, and then crash. Let's start today's show by talking about Kanye West no longer being anti-Semitic. That's a major news story. You know, everybody knows Kanye West for one thing now, and that's being anti-Semitic after he decided to throw his career away. So before we get into how and why Kanye West is no longer anti-Semitic, I guess it would make sense to do a general rundown. So for those of you who don't know who Kanye West is a very popular American rapper. You've probably heard his music, seen his likeness, or have been somewhat aware of him in some different way. He's been at the top of the rap game with gigantic stars like Jay-Z, Eminem, like the rest of them for the longest period of time, pumping out album after album, song after song that has hit the top of the charts and made him a lot of money. He has made partnership deals with Adidas and other companies to also make him even more money, making Kanye West a billionaire. Then he decided he was going to do a little throwaway, a little dip his toe into the water of politics, and he announced that he was going to run for president in 2020. Now, he had done a few like political things before then. He had met with Trump with a MAGA hat and had a meeting with him, which was as comical as you would expect, as he's unlocking his phone to show Trump posts and ideas he had in this meeting, as Kanye and Trump both are impossible to understand completely. It was a disaster of a meeting. But after that, we thought that was going to be the length of his involvement, but no, then he announces he's running for 2020. Doesn't go anywhere, doesn't get any votes, not a big surprise, but then he starts to dip his toes in politics again, and to lead up to the 2024 elections. He starts doing this in 2022, and he goes on Tucker Carlson's show to talk about his politics. But the thing is, during that interview, he said some pretty anti-Semitic things. But considering that Kanye has had meetings with Trump, Kanye has kind of tied his image somewhat to Trump politically, Tucker Carlson didn't want to show all the anti-Semitism.
Burns is an
so what?
immoral,
Jonah Hill,
corrupt,
not Jonah Hill. Somebody just juked me out in chat. Mr. Light, thank you so much for the tier 1. Beats up for 7 months. So what Tucker Carlson did is he simply edited out all the anti-Semitism and then uploaded the video. But no matter how much Tucker Carlson tries to cover for Kanye, eventually he says somewhere else some anti-Semitic stuff. He posts some stuff on Twitter about going DEFCON 3 on the Jews. He then posts this weird kind of like semi-swastika combined with the Star of David that gets Elon Musk to ban Kanye off of Twitter, even though technically he didn't like violate any of Twitter's TOS. I guess it was just too cringe to have on the platform. And eventually, Kanye starts palling around with Nick Fuentes and Milo Yiannopoulos. Milo Yiannopoulos, you might know from the fact that he did a big tour across the United States as like a very gay conservative, saying very offensive things about the Muslims and about the trans people and about everybody. Then he went on a podcast and he accidentally said that he was okay with priests touching young boys. And that kind of ended his political career in its tracks. Everybody kind of distanced themselves from him because nobody wanted to be associated with him. Then he decided that he was going to stop being homosexual. Not really something you can do, but he announces he's going to stop being homosexual, records a video of him throwing his ring into the ocean. Very clearly edited. It's very clear he didn't actually throw his ring into the ocean. And then he starts selling like statues of the Virgin Mary on like Christian television networks, far-right Christian television networks. So that Milo Yiannopoulos is getting back into politics through Kanye's campaign. The other person on Kanye's campaign is Nick Fuentes. Nick Fuentes is a very somewhat, well, I would say not very well known, I guess somewhat well-known white nationalist. He's very in favor of the separation of the races. He does not believe white people and black people should intermarry. He has put a lot of doubt on the Holocaust, made a lot of comparisons with it, kind of silly comparisons to try to say, 6 million Jews didn't die. I think that's all a big bunch of baloney. Very, very strange man with very, very disgusting views. He also had like a date with a femboy that we don't really talk about. So he becomes Kanye's de facto campaign manager with Milo Yiannopoulos. While Milo Yiannopoulos would be kind of boxed out later, Nick Fuentes is able to grip his hands in deep. Now, this leads to Kanye, either on the advice of Nick Fuentes, either on the advice of Milo, the advice of somebody, to start going on shows, internet shows. He goes on Lex Friedman's podcast. Lex Friedman confronts him about his anti-Semitism. It does not go well. Kanye doesn't take it well. He goes on Tim Pool's. He gets confronted on Tim Pool's show about his anti-Semitism. It goes so poorly that Kanye walks off the show, and he just like completely says, never mind, I don't want to do this interview with Tim Pool anymore. A lot of the right gave Tim Pool a lot of shit for that, even though personally, I think Tim Pool was still being too nice to Kanye about his anti-Semitic beliefs. But then eventually, this whole arc, I'm sorry, I went through the whole history here. This whole arc culminates. It culminates with Kanye West going on Alex Jones's show. And on that show, he says Hitler is great, that he loves Hitler. When Alex Jones tries to reel hit him, like, you mean you love him in a Christian way? And he's like, no, what I mean is, like, I love Hitler. Like, I think what he did was good. I don't believe the Holocaust is real. And he just starts saying every single anti-Semitic, pro-Nazi, pro-fascist, pro-Hitler talking point you could possibly imagine, as he starts talking about the swindling Jews and their evil activities and how the Nazis were not that bad. So this is the final straw that broke the camel's back. While he had already lost Adidas before this, while he had already lost a lot of partnerships before this, this seemed to be the thing that most furthest distanced himself from his old life, from his old business opportunities, from the people that he used to associate while being a rapper. And ever since then, it's just been nothing more but a downward spiral. But then he disappeared. We didn't hear any updates from him. Milo was already distanced from him. He wasn't giving us any updates.
Immoral, morally corrupt,
bankrupt man. Buckeye 76, tier 1, sub for 23 months. Currently on a 22-month streak. Says 23 months of wasted money. Hey, I appreciate you wasting your money on me. I'm a great way to waste your money. I will acknowledge it for a moment, then simply move on with my story. Isn't that a great way to spend your time? But he kind of like disappears. Kanye disappears off the face of the earth. We don't know where he went. Nick Fuentes isn't enlightening the people. Other people aren't telling us where he went. But a lot of people have been suspecting that Kanye is in the midst of a mental health crisis, that he's in the midst of some mental problems that he's going through, that he is dealing with bipolar disorder. And for the last year, he's been going up. And I guess his high was anti-Semitism. And now he's crashing, he's coming down, and it's going to be very brutal because the higher you go up, the lower you go down, and then crash. And so a lot of people suspected that Kanye, behind closed doors, around this period, apparently he got remarried, by the way. Totally safe, totally fine that in the midst of a bipolar episode, he decides to get married. But eventually, Kanye comes back into the public sphere. We see him back. And this is how Kanye West decides to reintroduce himself to the world with an amazing message about Jonah Hill, Channing Tatum, 21 Jump Street, and the fact that we can all overcome bigotry. Because he is here to announce that he is no longer anti-Semitic. That is right. He is no longer anti-Semitic. He is giving up the Hitler brand, the Hitler legacy, and he is signing up against the Hitler brand and the Hitler legacy. Mein Kampf is no longer his favorite book. I don't know what that's going to mean for his branding. I find it hard to believe that he's going to be able to just completely reverse course and everyone's going to forget. Because if you're a businessman and you want to make an agreement or some deal with a rapper so you can have their brand attached to your brand, number one, it's probably not smart to attach your brand to somebody who was saying, the Holocaust was fake like under a year ago. And it's probably not smart to attach yourself to somebody's brand who might decide out of nowhere he's going to run for president. He's going to say a bunch of offensive things, and he's just going to like disappear off the face of the earth. Bankrupt man. Mighty Duck Shoes. Thank you so much for the tier 1 to beats up for 14 months. I would have never believed that the 21 Jump Street reboot would deliver a blow against the rise of Nazism. This is the most significant blow against Nazism in a while, which is both very funny, but also very sad that this is the best we got in the last few months. But what I was saying is, I don't think it's going to be easy for Kanye West to re-enter his old life. What businessman is going to want to make a deal with a guy who's just denying the Holocaust, who just went through a crazy bipolar episode, who disappeared off the face of the earth for like a few months, and is now back not because he went on a huge, redemption tour, or he saw the light because he watched Schindler's List. He saw the light because he watched 21 Jump Street. Let's read the post where he talks about how 21 Jump Street made him no longer anti-Semitic. This is from Kanye West on Instagram. Watching Jonah Hill in 21 Jump Street made me like Jewish people again. No one should take anger against one or two individuals and transform that into hatred towards millions of innocent people. No Christian can be labeled anti-Semite knowing Jesus is Jew. Thank you, Jonah Hill. I love you. Well, isn't that sweet? That is unbelievably sweet. First things first, though. He says no Christian can be labeled anti-Semitic knowing Jesus is a Jew. Do you know how many times I've heard the idea from Christians that Jesus was killed by Jews? It's a terrible anti-Semitic trope, but I've heard that. I've heard that amongst Christians. The idea that somebody, just because they're Christian, they can't be anti-Semitic is ridiculous. If there's anybody on the planet that probably should know that better than anyone else, it is Kanye West, the raging anti-Semite, who is now telling us they're no longer anti-Semitic because they watched 21 Jump Street. Now, I do not know why 21 Jump Street connected so deeply with Kanye, assuming this isn't all just a weird joke or just another episode in a bipolar meltdown, and like in a few days we're going to see him posting about the Romani people instead of the Jews. Joan, I've never seen 21 Jump Street. I don't know if anybody in chat has seen 21 Jump Street. I guess I would ask you, is there like a big anti-Semitism arc in the movie? Is there like an arc where like Jonah Hill like walks up to Hitler and he's like, Hitler, man, what you're doing is not chill? I highly doubt it. I think it's just that Kanye probably knows Jonah Hill, who's probably met Jonah Hill before, saw Jonah Hill on TV, enjoyed the movie, enjoyed Jonah Hill's comedy, and was like, damn, I can't believe I'm hating all the Jews when Jonah Hill seems like such a chill guy. And Jonah Hill does seem like a chill guy. I understand the logic. I don't know anybody who actually hates Jonah Hill. Who hates Jonah Hill? I'm not gonna say he's impossible to hate, but I don't know why somebody would hate him.
Immoral, morally corrupt, bankrupt man.
But this is like very simplistic. This was a very simple thing that turned him, you know? He went on multiple radio shows to talk about how the Holocaust didn't happen. He went on multiple radio shows to talk about how he loved Hitler and how the Jews are evil.
Burns is an immoral, morally corrupt, and bankrupt man.
It makes me think he didn't really hold these anti-Semitic beliefs that deeply if all it took for Kanye to turn back in favor of the Jews was Jewish comedy. If that's all it took, then you could have put on basically half the shows on Netflix on at any day of the week, and you could have turned Kanye West. It would have been simple. The man simply needed to sit down and turn on his television. Philianis, thank you so much for gifting a tier 1 sub. And Juliak, thank you so much for the tier 1 as well. Love your work. Keep it up, Dylan. Thank you. It's just such a strange thing to like completely switch his worldview, to change him from 1 week inspiring neo-Nazis to go out there with signs saying Kanye is right about the Jews, and now he completely turns around because Jonah Hill maybe like made a fart joke in a TV movie in a movie for television. Yeah, if he watched Curb Your Enthusiasm, he would have converted to Judaism. True. If this is all it took to make Jonah Hill like the Jews, if we can give him something that's actually funny, like Curb Your Enthusiasm or another show heavily inspired by Jewish comedians, we can turn him into a Jew. I think we should keep going. I don't think we should stop with making Kanye no longer anti-Semitic. We should make him into a Jew. I do not believe that if we let go now, Kanye will ever truly stop being anti-Semitic. I think this is an all or nothing struggle for Kanye's mind. And the next part of that struggle is people sending him PDFs of the Talmud. That's the only next step forward in the struggle to keep Kanye away from hurting the interests of the Jewish community. My goodness.